I'm pissed off. You too? Yeah, I know. This is my Philodendron Melano, and for the first time in 5 years, it is finally growing nice leaves. So of course something had to go wrong. Can't be that I finally have a nice mature Melano. Well, and in today's video we're looking at what went wrong and we're gonna do something about it. Hey everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Philodendron Melano, or Philodendron Melano crisis as I like to refer to it as well, is just a plant that, you know, at any moment feel like can turn on you. I've had such a good time with it, and for almost a full year it was growing nicely and giving me better leaves until it really was giving me like these really beautiful leaves, and then I was like, oh my god, I think I found the sweet spot. I know how to take care of it now. I'm not gonna move it, I'm not gonna do anything with it, and it's just gonna continuously grow and thrive, and it's just gonna be so beautiful, right? Like, what could possibly go wrong? I came back from a holiday in Fiji and I actually discovered a significant amount of spider mites on this plant, and you can really see this specifically in this leaf over here. You can see the discolorations on the side. This is all due to spider mite damage. You can definitely see it in the back. In general, you can see all of these little dots as well. It's just not... This leaf, for example, did not have spider mite damage, the one I'm wiggling over here, and you can really see it. It doesn't have the red discoloration. It is much darker in color. I don't care about that little bit of discoloration. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's still looking nice. However, post-spider mite infestation also gave me this leaf, which is significantly smaller than the one preceding it. It also had one entire lobe missing, which makes me think that spider mites probably got in there in the development stage. And yeah, I was like, you know what, it's fine, it's just one leaf. I'm sure it's gonna be back to its former glory. No, this node over here is currently just a caterpillar. That is because the leaf that was here was completely rotten, and I just took it out 2 days ago because I don't want to leave the rotten caterpillar in there, or I don't want to leave the rotten leaf in that caterpillar and then, you know, let the rot spread. So I already ripped that out. Maybe here you can see it a little bit better. I ripped it off, so this back bit is then where the leaf would have come out of. Which means that basically that latest node on the moss pole over there is empty. There is no leaf. The plant has already aborted the leaf before it even had the chance to break out of the caterpillar. Now, I'm not too sure why, to be honest. I don't think by now it's still remnants of the spider mites. I treated the spider mites with Killamite, by the way, and I actually purchased that specifically because of my Melano. I was like, you know what, the Melano has grown so nice, I don't want to risk anything. And I used to use Vitality Plus, which has been discontinued, so I've been looking for an alternative. In the meantime, I kind of just used neem oil. But the neem oil never really was super effective. It was keeping it at bay, but not super effective. But when my Melano was throwing his fit, I was like, you know what? I didn't wait 5 years for nice growth to then lose the plant to spider mites within a month. So I was like, I need something more hectic, and I found the Killamite recommendation online. Now it is a chemical, so use with caution. Use at your own discretion. Definitely not an expert at pest treatment, using chemicals or not, organic and so on. Well, I'm just using it and I don't want to gatekeep. It has definitely worked in getting rid of them. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm pissed off, and I don't even know why it aborted the last one over there. Nothing changed. I didn't let it dry out. You can see that it has healthy roots in here. It has healthy roots coming out there. So it's not a major root. You can't see anything, no? Maybe you can see the roots coming out there. I don't know. I just don't know what exactly went wrong. But yeah. Here is the second shoot, by the way. The second shoot has only really made it halfway up the pole. The poles meet here. So yeah, also not happy about that. But look, if the main shoot is giving me nice leaves like that, I'm not mad. I only need one then, you know, but at the moment it's not even giving me leaves either. So we're gonna have to chop it. In preparation for this, I have cut in between the stems where the two poles meet. Well, we have to cut it because it's reaching the top of the moss pole. I just wanted to actually cut it when it reaches the top of the moss pole and is looking pretty. Most likely, when something like this happens, is that it is a change in conditions, so you're inducing shock to the plant as a hissy fit. Pests, but the pests weren't that crazy, I think because I got on top of it pretty quickly. I feel like it would be a lot to have like a full-on aborted leaf. Maybe there was just a bit of water stuck in that, maybe by accident when watering the plant, a bit of water got trapped in the cutter fill and then it just rotted away. Maybe it was just something really small and unfortunate. To be frank, I don't know. I also have to just cut through the pole over here, even if there's some roots in there, unfortunately. Is that right? Now I can bring you a bit closer. There weren't any roots here, to be honest, but I can see them here, and here, and here, and here. Alrighty, I'll park the bottom part on the side because we're going to do something with that as well. I actually am really keen to put this one in my greenhouse because I did the All You Need to Know to Grow series on this plant, and if you've watched that, you would know that this plant really likes tropical conditions with high humidity and high temperatures. So technically the greenhouse should really get the best out of it. Huh? You've seen me do this process many times. I call it chop and extend. I'll remove as much moss as I can from the bottom over here because that part will be inside the pot. But actually going in here with my fingers, I can feel more roots than were visible initially. I also don't want to push it to the extent that I'm going to rip a bunch of roots. The idea is that the moss has high water retention, so more likely to cause over-watering issues. But it's really just preventative. Realistically, nothing has ever actually happened. I'll flip it upside down. Beautiful. And I'll just top it up with airway hooks. Let me quickly do that and then I'll show you closer. But what I wanted to show you is that the second shoot is now only here, right? Just making it out of the pot. And there's about 2 nodes inside the pot. Now, obviously, that is a much smaller cutting compared to the main shoot over here. So I'm basically now perpetuating the issue of the second shoot being a little bit behind. It's now going to be even more behind, huh? But that's okay. Today it's not about the second shoot, today is really about that main shoot because the main shoot is what's giving me these nice leaves. The second shoot was really just filling it up a little bit. So, time for an extension. I've got a new moss pole here. Same process as always. I call it the chop and extend, and I've got in-depth tutorials on it in my moss pole playlist and in the description. So, garden stake. All the way to the bottom of the pot. Connect the existing pole to the garden stake. I still like to use my open style moss poles for all of my velvet philodendron, or for most of my plants that I grow indoors actually, because I think they look the nicest. They don't use that much moss compared to the plastic backed ones, and I don't mind giving my plants the extra aeration. So far, like, the plants have really liked them. Some of my newer plants I have been converting to the grow verticals, but I don't think there's a need to convert every single plant into a grow vertical pole and have the plastic backing. Yes, it will make your life a bit easier when it comes to watering, but I don't mind watering. Kind of like my job these days, isn't it? Also, they're in a room that has really high humidity, and I'm assuming to an extent the high humidity is facilitated by the open style moss poles, because with the open style moss poles, of course, some of the water would also evaporate and just increase the ambient room humidity. So in that room I prefer the open style moss poles, so they can also kind of boost the humidity in the room a little bit, and then at the same time, because the humidity in the room is boosted, I don't need the extra water retention because it doesn't dry out as quickly. Does that make sense? Probably not. Anyway, basically, if you'd be growing in a really dry environment, I can understand how these open style moss poles are just too much work and not worth the increased aesthetics, let's say. Alrighty, I just quickly also connected the 2 poles with cable ties, and I connected both of them to the garden stake, and that's holding it all together. One big happy family. Alrighty, sweet. I'm gonna water this in, but it is really hot outside at the moment, so I think I'm just gonna water it in the shower upstairs or something like that, because I don't want this plant to burn. It's like 35 or something like that outside today. Not happy. Now let's have a look at what we can do with the bottom part, because here we can experiment a little further. There are actually 2 more cuttings down here that just weren't getting enough light. I might actually just pin them to the moss pile. Oh, there's another one here that, it's reshooting there. Clearly the ones down there didn't do too well. This obviously has no leaves, and the reason why this has no leaves is because a lot of leaves were aborted and or are cut off after the Spidermite infestation. So I do want to cut this in a few spots. Now I don't think we need to go single node cuttings. I think that's a bit too ambitious. I also don't know how good the root health is of these cuttings in here. So I might go with double nodes and just see if that wants to eventuate. Double, so I cut here. And I always cut like a little chunk out so these bits don't touch and don't need to... I'll leave this one as a triple node so they don't have to rot. Thank you. Yeah, this one doesn't look promising. This one has not, this latest node hasn't really rooted. I mean, you saw that. There wasn't all too much method to my madness. Actually, kind of stupid. I don't want to water this one outside because it's too hot, but this one I'm going to put in the greenhouse. You know what? I'm going to take them both outside. I'm just going to hoist them down, keep them clean. Maybe do a killer mite again. Just in case, even though I can't see anything right now, but you never know. And then I will check in with you in a couple of months' time maybe to see what has happened with the plant after the chop, and to see if I maybe get a little bit smarter about what actually happened in hindsight, because at this stage I'm not 100% sure. The closest I get is thinking there was spider mites. But anyway, time will tell. I'll see you soon. And here we are 6 months later, and I'll bring you a bit closer. Let's make sure that I get everything in frame. Let me address something first. Over here you see a cut. So basically the extension is here, and in that initial video I showed you that there was an empty node, which is this node over here. There's no leaf on this node. After the chop, it sent out yet another empty node. The leaf in here was rotten again, and I have another theory. Let me address it in a second. But basically, that would have meant that there was one leaf here, and then the next leaf might only be here or so, right? So it would have caused like a significant chunk of the pole not having a leaf, making the plant look quite leggy. So I decided, actually that's not at all what I want. I want this to be lush instead. So I chopped over here, so below the first empty node over here. It's not technically empty. I think an empty node is actually if it doesn't even attempt to grow a leaf, right? But you know what I mean? It's like self-induced empty node. So basically I chopped right above the last leaf, and then I had the plant reshoot. Now it reshot from this node down here, and then started growing a new stem, and have a look at how thick this stem has already gotten over those 6 months, despite the fact that we're currently in winter. No, like it is actually thicker than the original stem that I cut. So that is very good news. That reshoot actually ended up also giving me one empty node over here, but that is not unusual for reshoots, to be honest. But it then started growing this leaf and this leaf over here. I need to back up a bit, in very quick succession, and is now pushing out the next leaf over here. Now technically we also have this 2 node cutting on here, right? These 2 nodes are technically attached, but it hasn't really reshot, it hasn't done anything. But technically there is the potential for this to also reshoot. But you can see it's not very thoroughly rooted into the moss pole anyway, so to be honest, I think nothing will eventuate from this. That's okay. I'm using the chopstick over here to just kind of direct this new reshoot towards the center of the pole to take over, and it's been working really, really well. Let me quickly address, there was also a second shoot In here, you can see that second shoot is also growing, but it is definitely growing much slower. So tinier leaves, which is fine. It's just hopefully filling in the bottom part of the pole a little bit as potentially some of these older leaves are dying. Also, have a look at these really nice roots. Now, of course, ideally you would want the roots to be in the moss pole rather than also around the moss pole, but there's plenty of roots that are also going in, right? So this is kind of how they would attach to a tree in nature as well. So it's obviously not optimizing the root potential, but I think I can't complain about the result that I'm seeing. Alrighty, so that's basically what happened since the last update. And obviously that wasn't ideal because I chopped the top growth off a month after the repot. So it obviously then had to reshoot, and overall that probably set me back by like 2 or 3 months or so until I then first started seeing a leaf again, right? Whereas normally the idea behind a chop and extend is that you're keeping the active growth point at the top. The plant does not need to reshoot, and because of the root system within a moss pole, the plant can just keep growing as if nothing happened. So that was a little bit unfortunate, and that's why I've only seen 2 leaves, but I'm very happy with the rapid increase in leaf size of those 2 leaves, right? These leaves over here are almost back to the former glory over here, before Spidermites, before rotting leaves, before chop and extend, and so on. So why did that second leaf rot away? I have 3 theories, and the first theory is that I just don't know. The second theory is that it might have been a direct result of the chop and extend. However, I have also done hundreds of chop and extends in my life, and that has never actually been a result of the chop and extend. The third theory, and that was something that somebody suggested in the comment section, is that there could be if there's an issue with, let's say, like over-fertilizing. Too many nutrients are being provided, which then alters the something in the water, pH and some other things in the water, right? And so on, where the plant might abort new leaves instead. So I have been more diligent in taking my plants outside and also flushing them through. With these moss poles, I usually use the water bottle upside down technique, right? Where I just take a water bottle, I flip it upside down, and then I just let it go through the pole in the pot wherever the pole is positioned, so I don't need to move it all too often. I always provide a weak dilution of GT Foliage Focus with my water, but you're actually supposed to have a flushing out cycle, which I was just a bit lazy with in, let's say, like recent history. So over the last few months or so, after I've had the second one rot, I've been more diligent with that, and by the looks of it, you know, obviously I can't complain. We now had 3 leaves in a row, and that issue seems to have been gone. Now I had the exact same issue with my Philodendron El Choco Red, and I've given it the exact same treatment, but it hasn't fixed the issue with my El Choco. So, you know, if I just look at this one, I would say that yes, I probably provided too many nutrients and that caused the leaf to rot, but then the same experiences with my El Choco is not necessarily backing up that theory. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's always good to come up with a theory to hopefully have some sort of learning, but there's also an element of uncertainty involved when we're dealing with plants. You know, it's nature, it can at times be a little bit unpredictable, but, you know, it's keeping it fun and entertaining, isn't it? Now, the last few months were also over winter, and I have to say this plant is actually growing quite well over winter, despite the fact that it would probably appreciate warmer temperatures, but I'm actually really happy with that. And I think winter comes with less spider mites, so, you know, happy days. So I think I'm happy again with this plant. I think we're looking good, and we're only like here on the pole as well, right? But this level. So we have plenty of pole to go. I don't even think it fully fits in frame. Yep, we have plenty of pole to go. And if these leaves are continuously improving in size now, I think by the end of the growing season, I could have a really nice specimen if I manage to stay on top of the spider mites this time around. So cross your fingers for me. Now, if you want to learn more about this plant in general, I actually have a full plant spotlight on this plant, or like a content series that I called Everything You Need to Know to Grow, which is obviously a super catchy and short title. But basically, in that Everything You Need to Know to Grow series, I look at one plant, I talk about the origin of that plant, the features, the conditions that I would like, and then any of my care tips. So I've done a full in-depth video guide on Philodendron Melano Chrysum if you want to learn more about the, you know, light, temperatures, humidity, fertilizer, aeroid mix, all of this. It's a full video just on this plant. The other thing I did in that video, I chopped up the bottom part. So let's talk about that briefly as well. Quite obviously not like amazing results over here. It was actually going really well initially when I had it in the greenhouse, and it was definitely growing and sending out new. I mean, all of these leaves you see here are new, right? They weren't there, I think. Were they? I think maybe one of them was there, something like that. But you can also see that this cutting over here, for example, has actually reshot, but then also aborted it. That, however, was pests. And now the stem is kind of just shriveling up, so nothing is going to eventuate from here. Over here you can see a little bit of rot on the back of this stem, but it has reshot and is giving me a new leaf. But you can also see pest damage on this leaf over here. And this down here, for example, is also completely rotten. I should really remove this. Yeah, this is rotten. Look at that. This stem over here. And this stem is also completely shriveled up. So why was this so unsuccessful? It is definitely my fault. I feel like at the moment I have so many plants where I kind of messed up, where I did something wrong and so on, but you know, YOLO, it's actually real. That is reality, and if people tell you that nothing ever goes wrong, they're definitely lying to you. It was going fine in the greenhouse. Then as part of my winter preparation, I knew it's not gonna like the winter temperatures out there. So I put it up in my attic. My attic is quite dry because, you know, hot air rises. Light is not the issue because I'm supplementing with light. The issue is really how dry it is, and the fact that I keep forgetting about it because it's out of sight, out of mind, kind of. So, for example, I fully forgot to even ask my housemate to go up there and help me water those plants when I was in Thailand for 8 or 9 days or stuff like that. And in itself, 8 or 9 days is nothing crazy, and most moss poles can somewhat handle it. But not up in the attic where all of the hot, dry air rises when we're heating down here. So this was super crunchy and dried out, and especially if you have cuttings over here that are only relying on the root system within the moss pole. You can't have the moss pole dry out, otherwise the whole root system dries out and then it's not going to be successful, right? So when you do these cuttings on the moss pole, you need to be even more diligent with the watering, which I wasn't. On top of that, I also had thrips up in my rescue section, and because again out of sight, out of mind, I was very late in getting on top of it. I used contender spray, by the way. And they have definitely caused a lot of damage to the newly emergent leaves. So I had to chop off a lot of growth points like this, or like not really chop off, but just, you know, kind of abandoned. This one I had to chop off the growth point. Over here I had to chop off the growth points. They were all just so infested and already damaged. So I was like, what's the point? This leaf is never gonna unfurl and look nice. So let me just chop it, let the plant reshoot, and hopefully by then the thrips are also kind of under control. So not a success down here, but it is kind of okay as well. Like, I've done very little for it, and it would actually be nice to keep these plants somewhat juvenile and maybe just have a really lush pole full of small juvenile Melanos, almost like Mikan style. But yeah, I wanted to show you for completion purposes. Wasn't my best work here. In a nutshell, basically, I'm happy with my Melano again, but it took a good 6 months to overcome that Melano crisis, and yeah. And I know that it won't be the last Melano crisis for the two of us. I'm sure this is going to be an ongoing theme. You know, as soon as the plant is going to look nice and happy and healthy, it's probably going to have some sort of issue again. And you know what? With a plant that is this beautiful, I am more than willing to put in the work. And you know, it makes these moments where you do have success more special. If you want to learn more about Melanochrysum, check out the video that I'm about to link at the end screen. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up as well, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!